So for those of you who missed the Dual Rectifier the first time around, here's your chance to own a legend. So in the twilight of the Mark IIc era, the late 80s, that sound started to become not quite enough for some people. It was too defined with the late 80s hair rock, and we were moving towards a sound that was more British in nature. So Randy and I got a bunch of amps together and we did a bunch of listening and kind of came up with this concept of the Stylist series. And that was, it was a bunch of amplifiers, but certainly the most famous of them was the Dual Rectifier.
It certainly wasn't easy. We had to go back into some older revs. When I say we, John Marshall was huge and instrumental in doing this, going back through each part of the circuit to see what made each thing special, because there's so much inside this amplifier for its time, you know, and even today. What were the best parts of those circuits, and what could we improve upon? And some of the things were through board layout. We've had years of experience laying out boards now since this first one. We know that some things in proximity don't want to be together. There's certain layout tricks that we have that Randy has taught us along the way. When we got to the end of this thing, we realized we had a cleaner, meaner, better rectifier, and there's no denying it.
And so the Dual Rectifier came out in about 91. It basically changed both the sound and the face of Mesa Boogie. It kind of overshot what we were looking to do, and it got grabbed by all the Seattle bands that were doing grunge. It just exploded and it changed everything. And for us as a company, it really changed everything because we almost doubled our production trying to keep up with that amplifier. The Rectifier essentially is a modified British amplifier. It deviates from the Mesa Boogie sound greatly, and that's also why we didn't use the Boogie logo on the amplifier. We wanted to come up with a completely different identity and sound, therefore MESA Engineering. Randy always had that name as the name of his company, but we decided to use it on the cabinetry and the head, just to notate that it's a complete departure from the friendly Boogie sound of the era before.
Dual rectifiers, there must have been 100 flying leads going everywhere because that was the easiest way to get it done at the time. Since then, we've learned that, you know, circuit board layouts are just so much better in the fact that you don't have all these antennas in the air, you don't have all these flying leads picking up noise. If you don't tie it right, dress it right, then this amp doesn't sound like that amp, and that amp's noisy, and this one, it's doing something completely different. I like this one, and that's why everyone has their favorite, because they're all so kind of different in a way. But through this PCB layout, we're able to duplicate it time and time again, reduce the noise floor, which gives you your better clean that you're hearing in this amp. Feels more responsive just because there's not so much noise in the background. So, and going down the path of this project, we knew we had it right from a sound standpoint. We knew we had the inside completely dialed. We knew we had all the features that we wanted on it. And what was it going to look like? And so we come back to the drawing board and we're like, I'm a huge fan of the chrome look, the blacked out. I've had versions of this. And so we kind of put it on the table, and then we're like, can you even chrome something mass production where we are in California? I don't know. So we had to go out. We found this shop in Sacramento, which is about an hour northeast of Petaluma, California. This guy is chroming hot rod parts. You know, he's got bumpers, he's got front grills. He's doing all this hot rod work. And they reach out to him and he says, "You know what? It's gonna get in the way, but I wanna do the project. This sounds really cool. But I'll tell you what, I can only do about 50 at a time because I still gotta do this stuff, my real work." And so you might see 20 dual rectifiers lined up next to a 57 Chevy bumper, some hubcaps, I don't know, whatever, some grill work of an old Studebaker, you know, all going in the bath at the same time. So our hot rod, their hot rod, couldn't be a better match.
So the dual rectifier is set up in a 2-channel format. The top channel has dual modes, a clean mode represented by a green LED, and the lead mode, which is represented by the famous orange. Orange mode, orange channel. You'll hear that a lot in rectifier circles. Oh, I'm into orange. Orange is also referred to as vintage because it's the softer, sweeter of the two. The top end's a little more rolled off. There's a little more scoop in the mid-range and a big blooming bottom that just makes the sound huge. So that's really great for giant crunch chord sounds or even warm soloing on the higher strings. The bottom channel, called the red channel or modern channel, is a really high gain aggressive channel. It has a lot more cut in the high, mids, low treble region and a tighter low end. This is achieved by the removal of negative feedback, so the power section is just wide open listening to your attack. It's super sensitive, so when you hit the strings, boom, you get the sound immediately. This can be really great for aggressive, percussive rhythm sounds. If you're gonna solo, you wanna turn the presence down because you need to roll off some of that aggressive claw. Starting with the preamp, you have the usual suspects of gain, treble, middle, bass, presence, and master. You also have a loop active master that kicks in when you turn the effects loop on. By the way, the effects loop is programmable or assignable. There's 5 positions. There's bypass, hard bypass, which removes the loop active master. And in that case, your channel masters become your overall output volumes. You have loop on in orange, loop on in red, loop on all the time, and you have an external switch option too that lets you trigger the loop on from an external master switcher. So the rectifier is a 100-watt amplifier, full pro power there, but we also have an option to kick it down in a little bit spongier way, hence the spongy bold switch on the AC line. Bold gives you the full 117 volts coming from the wall. Spongy knocks it down to about 93 volts or so, where you can get a little more sag out of the power section, a little different EQ that has a little more scooped mid-range and some emphasis on the top end. So for example, to play really tight percussive high gain rhythm stuff, you'd probably want to use bold. If you were playing more classic stuff with lower gain settings, spongy might be the ticket. And as for the aesthetics, we brought back the most custom look from the 90s, the chrome chassis and the black diamond plate. That was a special order back when we were making the original rectifiers, and here you have it standard.
You gotta think, this amp was made almost 30 years ago. The components that were out then are completely different as to what's available today on today's markets. Now we entered into the regulatory age and we have to be certified to get into other countries and get into Canada. Now we have to think about that in our design. We can't just say this sounds great. You have to go in designing around the components that are available and kind of what you know is gonna pass through regulatory, all the way from the tube cage on the back, the little things that secure the tube cage to the back, those are regulated. Anything to do with the input on the AC mains, plate resistors to the tubes, these are all things that we cannot deviate from, the AC jack fuse holders, all these things. So while they're not glamorous parts of the preamp and the mojo of the sound, they are altering if you have to use different parts. Look, at the end of the day, it's all about how this thing sounds.
You know, when we started the rectifiers, we had no idea of the impact they would make on a generation. Before long, they became the most recorded amplifiers, certainly in LA and Seattle, and then spread across the United States and the world. And, you know, you find them on everything from the Seattle sound, you know, grunge to nu metal to emo and just on into the 2000s. They just made an incredible impact. And of course, we were super grateful and really surprised by it. And we continue to build rectifiers to this day. This particular one is the peak of all rectifier eras. You know, it captures the essence of the rectifier. So the first thing you'll notice when you flip the rectifier around to its backside is glass and more glass. You've got 4 power tubes, 6L6s, 2 rectifier tubes, 5U4s, and 5 12AX7s for the preamp. The first option here is the choice of rectifiers. We give you the choice of silicon diodes or tube rectification. The tube rectification will be a little bit saggier, warmer, have more scoop to it, and it's just kind of an all-around more juicy feel. The silicon diodes will be a tighter, bolder attack, and that's really good for percussive rhythm parts, especially when you're layering on high gain. The next option is the bias switch, which gives you the choice of running the stock complement of 6L6s for a fatter, warmer sound, or swapping over to EL34s for a more British character. That way you'll have a little shifted up mids, the harmonics will come through a little better, and the low end will be kind of skinnier and tighter. Now we come to the effects loop. We've actually updated the loop on this rectifier to a series loop. You'll also notice that there's a loop send level here, and that allows you to fine-tune the level to your effects once you have your channel set for the sounds you want. Next, we have the loop select, which is a rotary that allows you to assign the loop wherever you'd like it. For example, you could have the loop bypassed altogether, deleting the loop active master on the front panel, or you could have it come on the orange channel, the red channel, both, or you could set it to external and switch it from a master switcher. Next is the slave out and level control. This allows you to capture the full sound of the amplifier, preamp and power amp for that full dynamic content, and send it to an effects rack or maybe another rectifier head or maybe a stereo power amp. It just enables you to increase the volume and have a different type of feed than the effects send. The rectifiers have always had the most comprehensive set of speaker outputs. Between the 2 4s, the 2 8s, and the 16, you can cover any of your cabinet needs. Past the speaker outputs, we have the external jacks. These allow you to select the loop and the channels remotely when you have the loop select switch set to external switch. The next feature up is orange channel gain. This switch allows you to select between variable high gain for the orange channel and clean rhythm. In variable high gain, you get the full fire-breathing monster of the orange channel of the rectifier. This is a sound you've heard on records for decades. When you set it to clean rhythm, it reconfigures the entire channel for more traditional gain sounds. The next feature up is the channel style select, which is possibly the deepest switch on the whole amplifier. This repositioned switch allows you to reconfigure each of the channels to be like the other. So for example, if you wanted 2 red channels real aggressive, real tight, you'd flip the switch to the left and have orange to modern. That would make the top channel react just like the bottom channel. Or if you prefer the opposite and you want 2 orange channels, you'd flip the switch to the right and go red to vintage. And finally, if you prefer the versatility of the 2 channels being different, leave the switch in the center. So in last up, we have the channel select. This basically doubles as the foot switch. Say when you're recording or you don't want to use the foot switch, it just allows you to access the channels with a manual switch.
Why this is unique and that what Randy did back in the day was different from the Mark series, where we said, I want all the gain up front before we get to the preamp controls, you know. So it was gain stage, gain stage, gain stage, cascading, and then we'll let you shape the sound with the tone controls. Where in the traditional Mark series, you would go, you know, you have the first input gain stage, your gain was there, and then you had your tone controls, and then maybe the next gain stage is to follow. So this was all gain up front, and then shape it. We're not going to let it go until at Mesa Boogie we are 100% all in on this thing, and that's where we are.
Years later, the most decked out rectifier package we ever made, standard, the 2 iconic gain sounds in the rectifier family, orange and modern, and a new improved clean sound. This is a whole body experience playing this amplifier at volume, so get ready to be blown away and enjoy. Take care.